Hi, this is Jason Radford, and today I want to show you how to use the matrix reasoning task for the collective intelligence task battery. So here I'm starting with my research team, and I want to go under my Add New Clone Experiment tab and open up the CITB matrix reasoning task. I'm going to call this JT matrix reasoning. So it's the name for my specific version of the task. So now I have my copy of it. I can launch a demo of it to see how it plays, fiddle around with it, launch it, see if I broke things, see if it plays right. I have the files that I can edit to actually change the study to fit my specific question or fit my specific design. We have the standard variables that you can edit manually or without having to go in and change the code. And lastly, I'll show you the export data tab. This is where you would go grab the data that's collected from the task. First, let me walk you through the variables. The first variable is this chat channel matrix. So this defines who gets to talk to who during the process of working on these matrix problems. So by default, we're set to all, which means there's one chat room where everybody gets to talk to one another. If you want to, you can specify a specific kind of chat network by adding in this dictionary of player IDs and channels. So in this case, player number one is on channel 1 and 2. Player number 2 is chatting with player number 1 on channel 1. And player number 3 is chatting with player number 1 on channel 2. So it's a line network. Next, we have these countdowns. Every experiment in the CITB has a countdown. This makes it fair for teams so that every team has the same amount of time to spend on a task, as well as the same amount of time during the instructions and the results to prepare and debrief on these tasks. For the matrix reasoning task, this is set to 10 minutes. I think the normal amount of time is around 5 minutes. And for the sake of this demo, I'm going to set this to 20 seconds, just so I can show you what it looks like without it taking forever. So here the instructions are set at 10 seconds, again, for demo purposes. Normally we'd set it around 60 seconds for people to sort of get their feet in the study and really get through the instructions. You can also go up to 2 minutes. It's up to you. Lastly, we have the amount of the time set for the results. 10 seconds is usually fine because we're just telling people how many they got correct. Min participants is the minimum number of participants in the study. You can set this to whatever you want, but what happens is whenever fewer than, in this case, one, but if you set it to three, fewer than three participants were in the study. If you had three and somebody drops because they lose internet connection, the study is automatically going to end. Next is next experiment. So the CITB, this task battery, you go from one task to the next. Next experiment is the variable that you use to control which task people go to next. I'll explain that in a separate video that's dedicated to this chaining tasks. So that's all I'm going to say about it now. Number of choices is the number of choices that people will get in the matrix reasoning task. So in this case, there are 8 options that people can choose. There are 8 possibilities, 8 possible answers that they're given, and they have to choose one. This is where you just define that there are 8. And lastly is the show instructions true or false. If you set this to false, this study is going to skip the instructions and go straight to the experiment. And this is just useful for testing. If you wanted to redesign the way that this works and you want to skip the instructions so you don't have to wait every time you want to test to see if your updates actually did the thing you wanted them to do, set this to false, you'll skip the instructions, go straight into the experiment. But for testing with real people, keep it true so they get the instructions. Now let me show you how this study works, what it looks like. So I have my major reasoning task. This is the instructions. Then you have the standard sort of top of this purpose scoring and how to play, plus the images to show people what the interface looks like. Here's the actual study. I have my chat channel here, so if I had more people, I could just say hi and they would get it. I forgot what the answer is here. Set it to 5. I submit. And now, number 1 is set to 5. I go to the next puzzle. When I set to 5, everybody else sees that I set it to 5. No, I was wrong. I got 0 out of 20 right. So at least I get that feedback on how well we did as a team, and then the study ends. Or you go on to the next task. and then the data comes out down here. I have 0 skill. They were all incorrect. Efforts 3 because I clicked 3 times. Um, I don't go into the structure of the data because we just use the published version of how to count things. Okay, so the file structure. So let's just go ahead and dive in here. So we have one HTML file which controls all of the interfaces. This controls the little bar at the top of the timer. This is the message if there are too few players. Unfreeze section, don't worry about that. I should go ahead and remove that from the template. This is the section for instructions. So all the instructions get put in here. The results area shows you how many you got right and wrong, and then the experiment area, which has the experiment side, the chat side. There's an optional section if you want to add something custom. And this is that middle area where you see in the list of questions and the answers. Countdown is a utility function for controlling the timer. You should probably never have to touch this because the actual countdowns are set in the template structure JS file. Data collection is where we keep track of the results for the study, the actual data that's being generated. So it keeps track of whether the answer was correct, who answered it, whether it was incorrect, and then saves that data or puts it all together here and then saves it. So here's how you get the data for each participant, and then this is where we get the data for the team as a whole. This function uh, um, collated there. So if you want to change the data or you want to reuse the data somewhere in your study, this is the file you want to look at. Instruction text, this is where you go to change the instructions for your study. If you want to change the way that it works or change the title, change the purpose, change any of this stuff, go right ahead. You can. This is the section with the images plus instructions for what the interface is supposed to look like. So you could upload a new image, change the file name or add a new file name desk lines, dictionary here with the file name under file name, and then, oh, this is an example. File name with the extension, and then the text that goes along with that image explaining the interface. Next is this matrix reasoning JS, which is the experiment-specific code. So this is going to control which answers are correct, what happens when I select an answer, what happens when I change from question number 1 to question number 2. All of this experiment-specific stuff happens here, as opposed to template structure JS, which is the generic structure for the study. So this controls things like the timer, what happens when when the timer ends. What else happens here? This handles the images, instructions, so a bunch of different. Oh, when a player disconnects. So again, these just generic functions that all of the template tasks have for the CITB. So if you want to go change something and you don't find how it works in matrix reasoning, then check the template structure. These are the answer keys. So if you wanted to add in your own matrix reasoning puzzles, you can add the answer key in here and it'll use that instead. You'll just have to change, give it its own name. Oh, well, you can just reuse this if you wanted to. Add your answers here and then use different file names. Or just add a new dictionary with your own name and answer keys and then update it in the matrix reasoning JS file. Network chat JS is again more of a utility function. It's a utility script with a bunch of things that handle the chat. Usually you won't touch this unless you want to change things like player colors for chat, things like that. Player text colors. This is actually where you would change that stuff. But if you want to do more stuff, you can do that there. Seed random, another utility file for randomizing. Don't worry about it. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Template structure JS, as I was mentioning, is this generic JS file that's common for all of the CITB. And then, of course, the CSS. So If you want to change the way that things look, the way that things are laid out, you can go into the CSS. All right, so we have our matrix reasoning task. Let's go ahead and post it online so that people can take it. To do that, we want to go to this admin. You want to use this admin button to go to our experiment administration page. I already have it open because it takes a little while to load for me, because I have many, many different pages. So I'm going to add a category. I'm going to call this test matrix reasoning. You put in whatever text description you want. Again, this creates that tile on my CITB tutorial web page, which is not customized because I just did it for testing purposes. Down here now. If I click the play button, nothing's going to happen because I didn't tell it that the matrix reasoning experiment is attached to this tile. I've only created the tile. So now I'm going to add this experiment here. Boom, and we're done. So now when I click it, that'll take me to matrix reasoning. There's a separate video on how to set this up for multiple people and create a waiting room. So I'm not going to duplicate that here, but just know that's also there's lots of templates for making this look nice, changing the text, all that stuff. Again, I'm not going to go into that here. All right, thank you so much, and I look forward to showing you the next task.